Hey tennis fans, Nate here. Today we're talking about the new method of getting more power and more spin with less moving parts. That's right, the serve has become more efficient, and this is evident more than ever on the ATP when we take a look at the Carlos Alcaraz, the Holger Rune, the Ben Shelton serves. There's just less moving part. Now the argument may be that the athlete has gotten better, certainly, but remember, creating racket speed is all about the elasticity. And what we're referring to is what is abbreviated as SSC, and this is the stretch short cycle. All right, this sounds complex, but think about the elasticity through the arm that's needed. You hear us say all the time in our videos that the serve is like a bullwhip, but that's exactly what we're referring to, is the elasticity of the serve. But ultimately, MPH is equated to how fast the racket is moving, racket head speed, and momentum plays a big part of that. So before we dive into what the new players are doing, let's first revisit what some of the greatest servers in all time were using for their method. So if you remember the fluid serves of the Pete Sampras, Roger Federer, Feliciano Lopez, they all used more of a pendulum. And what they were doing, especially the likes of Sampras and Feliciano, is they were building momentum from the top to the bottom. All right, and Sampras especially had just an amazing lag to where the arm would catch up and then everything else would then catch up. The racket, the hitting hand would then play catch up. And this is how they were building momentum. They would build momentum by using this pendulum up. And the pendulum works a lot like a roller coaster. You see gravity is assisting that momentum and thus helping the racket head speed. So they were also using this stretch shortening cycling. And so I want you to think of this as if you imagine a muscle, right? A muscle is stretched and then there's a momentary pause. So it's stretched and then it's paused. And then all of a sudden there's a shortening effect to where there's a snapback. All right, and this is what we're talking about with the stretch shortening cycling. So you can almost see the rhythm of it on the Sampras serve, to where as he loaded back and went through this pendulum, there was this like momentary pause and then this massive contraction, right? This eccentric contraction. And this is the same thing if you imagine jumping. Right before you're ready to make that jump, the quad has to be engaged, and this is giving that explosivity. Is that a word, Kenny? Explosiveness off the ground. I'm human, I make errors. That explosiveness off the ground. Now, how come we don't see the large pendulum as much on the ATP? We still see it to some degree on the WTA, but not nearly as much on the ATP. How come we're not seeing this method as much? Well, one, it's difficult. It's more difficult to time because there's more moving parts. And then secondly, there's an easier way to access this SSC cycle, the stretch shortening cycle. And it actually happens on the side of the body. And this is where we see the likes of Carlos Alcaraz, Holger Rune, list goes on, Ben Shelton. And so what they're doing is they're actually building momentum from the side of the body. So from here, the racket is operating on the right side. And as the toss goes up and they're loading the legs, the racket is actually lagging on the right side. So instead of the Sampras or the Fed where it lagged a little bit down at the bottom, it's actually lagging on the side of the body. So now as I'm working through, if I'm doing, say, let's say the Holger Rune server, the elbow stays a little bit loon. So from here, as the toss goes up and the knee bend, the ground force is initiated. From here, as he's going up to the serve, now the racket has to travel from the dominant side of the body all the way through the power position. So it's just keeping this momentum going, all right? And this is something that you can do as a player as well. But let's go to the footage so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So a lot of sports science, but how does it apply to you? I think first thing is to identify what you're doing in the starting phase of the serve. Are you starting down together and then coming up together? I think this is a mistake for a lot of players because then it doesn't allow for this kind of organic SSC. Reason being is that things stay moving too long. And it also just adds to chasing errant tosses. So as the toss goes, like if my toss is out of place, the racket's gonna go get it. The fix, I think, for a lot of us is to eliminate all these moving parts of the racket traveling down and focus on getting the racket staying to the side. Done a lot of videos talking about the importance of starting with the palm down. But what you're gonna find is that if you focus on the toss and then working through the legs, as long as the racket is moving with the palm down, so we talk about this classic saluting, it's all gonna happen correctly. We're gonna have the arm going along for a ride, and it's gonna build momentum working from the right to left. All right, so just make sure that you're starting here and you toss first, and then you're worried about the leg bend, and just stay loose. Let the arm go with you. Here you can see the racket is face down, palm down, and the toss is going up. So I'm entering the rear pelvic tilt. And then from there, the knees are bending. But you can see how much momentum the racket is picking up, moving from right to left. And the racket enters the racket drop organically as I'm exploding up towards the ball. So I know this sounds complicated, but it's less moving parts, right? Instead of dropping the racket all the way to the floor, it simplifies things. And the less moving parts, the less that can go wrong. So get out there, give this a go. Remember, stay loose. Tension is the killer. You got to stay loose and crack that bullwhip. But I hope today's video helped you a ton. If it did, throw some comments in the comment section. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you didn't like. And maybe share it with a friend that you think this would help, because that actually helps the video a ton. And if you need anything tennis, check out the link down below. Player Court, we do it all. If you need a pro, if you need to find someone to play with, if you need new shoes or a new tennis racket, we do that too. I'll see you next time. Take care, guys.